All right. So one of the things that's really important about having a brand is how it looks and presents itself and the message that it's speaking to your customers and potential customers. So I'm really excited to have on here with me today someone who's an expert when it comes to design and creating that special look and feel of your brand. I'm excited to have with me here Miriska from Outlinematic. How are you doing today, Miriska?
Hi, Kevin. I'm great. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So, as we're recording this, we were just talking offline. We're both cooped up in our houses because we're in the middle of the coronavirus epidemic, which won't be the central topic here, but just wanted a quick touch on it. So, what's your thought process and what's all going on and how this leads to the long term of things?
Well, I think a lot of people, because of the social distancing, has had to adjust and actually order online. So I think this can be seen as a positive thing, especially long term. If people keep that, um, how do you say, that regimen of ordering online
Hmm.
for the long term, it can actually be a very good thing for people selling on Amazon, selling online everywhere. So I think it can really be seen as a positive thing. It's also a time for people who, I know that a lot of Amazon has shut down a few of the non-essential things, and I think that's a good time now to, like you said before, step back, take a look at your photos. This is a time that you can actually see where you can improve on your branding and things like that. So either way, I think it can be seen as a good time for both of those things. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. When we have to think of it sometimes not just like in the moment we're in, but the long term of things. And like last night, for example, I went to Cracker Barrel, and that's for those who are not familiar, it's this country restaurant. They always have this shop.
Hot Cracker Barrel.
And Cracker Barrel, every time I've ever been, the parking lot is full. There's always a wait. So we called in an order because you can still do takeout. Went in there. I'm the only person there. There's just the one lady who's in the front. Um, and as we're recording this, Easter will be on Sunday. And she was saying that everything Easter was 80% off, candy, gifts, whatever. And here they are, not even having had Easter. So this is just a little small example of what's happening out in the world of a lot of companies put money into whatever, Easter or, just their normal operations. And so brick and mortar stores, I think it's harder for them to adapt because
Hmm.
they're dependent on people coming into the store. And so when there's not less people coming into the store or they had to close down, we may see some closures of brick and mortar stores. I don't think Cracker Barrel is going to close down, but I think a lot of other stores might, or they're going to have to drastically reduce their costs or their prices just to get people in. And so I think long term, because to your point, we're seeing more and more people buy stuff. I still see UPS and Amazon trucks in my neighborhood all the time. So I think that's pushing more and more people to buy online. And so right now, I think is a good time to take a step back and really look at your brand and how you're presenting yourself and your images. So I think that leads it to the point of our discussion here of, what to even do. So just let's take another step back here and say, what is it that how did you get into the whole e-commerce business? Let's talk about your backstory here a little bit.
Oh, well, it's actually a very long and interesting story, but I'll try to keep it short.
All right, good deal.
So I work for a baby company called Bumbo. They sell these baby seats that a lot of people are actually familiar with, the foam seats. And I
Okay.
was a product designer for them. And I got a big interest in the packaging design because all the designers worked in one office, and I really liked how you present your product on packaging actually, and
Mm,
all the things that should go onto the packaging. It's not just the box that you put something in, it represents the product that's inside. So I started like working with the graphic designers on the packaging, doing like 3D renderings and illustrations and things for the packaging, and I really took a big interest in it. And I told my husband, we really should I really should maybe do a change in direction of what I'm doing. And he's like, well, why don't you do it as freelancing? And if you see that you like it, pursue it. And I started on Upwork, and I did a few other freelancing projects and kind of just went with it. And yeah, that's kind of, yeah, to cut it very short now. So the online services that you get to a lot of the profits that you made. So I decided, well, my husband was like, okay, let's start our own website. And yeah, thanks to him, we started the website. He's very good with marketing and all of that. So he helped me with everything, and that's how we ended up with Outlinematic, and that's how we are where we are today. And also the other reason is we like to travel a lot, so
Mhm.
having a business that you can run remotely really helps quite a bit. So you can still live your life, you can still travel, and you can work. So that's a big positive, big thing for us as well.
Awesome. 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 Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of your design philosophy. So, what is it that you would say to someone who says, I'm thinking about getting started or I'm thinking about revamping my brand? What is the overarching kind of thing you would say to start with?
Well, definitely, your logo is something that obviously is your identity overall. If people see your logo anywhere, they're supposed to be able to link that with your brand. So I would
Mm,
say um, the two should tie together. Your overall branding and your logo design should
hmm
tie in with each other. And that's where a lot of people make the mistake where they have a certain type of logo, but then the logo does not fit in with the overall branding. So say for example, they have a very like 3D complicated logo, but they want this very simple packaging, and tends to
mm,
confuse people, just a simple example. So I would say keeping a brand simple and not too many colors, not too many different fonts, not to overcomplicate your logo. You should be like, I mean, when I look at your background over there, immediately I see that smile of Amazon. And that's something
right.
that's like it stands out, everyone knows it. It's simple, it's one color, it doesn't matter in what color you put it, people are going to know it. And that's kind of where I like to um, push people in the direction of keeping it simple, because people want to overcomplicate it. Like for example, I have five, this lady was like, I have 5 children and I want all 5 of my children in my logo, in my brand logo. Like
Mm,
they tend to want to make it too personal, their
hmm
brand, and that does not necessarily always work. In some instances it can, but so like for example, that's a bit hard to bring into a logo design and still keep it simple.
Well, that's
Yeah.
such a good point, because if you really look at like a lot of the logos out there for major companies that you think of, so for people that are listening, not watching on YouTube, I've got a box in the background behind me that you just pointed out that has the little Amazon smile, and you know exactly what that is right away, or that little D in Disney, instantly that's Disney, or the M in McDonald's. As simple as that is, it's an M, but it's like we talk about the golden arches and all that. And it's like, if you really look at a lot of the main corporate logos, you can just see one element of it, like the smile or the D or the M, and you know exactly what company that is. And so think to your point, that's a very good idea to start is simple and not make it overly complicated that you're trying to tell the entire story. You're just trying to get a piece of the story, and then the rest of the branding can kind of tell the rest of the story. Is that kind of what I'm understanding?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you summarize that pretty well. That's exactly what I mean by that.
Okay. So now we've got like, okay, if I guess if we think of the logo as somewhat of an anchor, and now everything else kind of, anchors off from that. So what are the things we're thinking about when we're creating, let's say, the packaging?
Well, for packaging, since we work a lot with e-commerce sellers.
Hmm.
I don't always recommend actually putting the product on the packaging because I don't feel it's very necessary. So since people already know what they're purchasing, they can go through your listing images. So I like to have people do like kind of gift like packaging or a very nice packaging that you can take just as is and give that as a gift, or just something that looks very nice when it gets to your door, you know. So that's one thing that I really like to do, is maybe use an illustration or a nice pattern on the packaging, but
Hmm.
really bringing out the branding on the packaging, the branding colors, and not necessarily because a lot of people, they want to do photography first, and photography can get quite expensive. So if you don't have a budget for things, because if you want to put an image on your packaging, it has to be very high quality,
Mm.
professional image, good lighting and everything, otherwise it's just going to look cheap. So a lot of people don't have that in their budget, so I just tell them, you know, it's not necessary, because people already know what they're buying. They see your listing, they go through all the images. You can either put an illustration or just have very nice premium gift looking packaging. And yeah, I mean, it's not, it's different with brick and mortar stores. People want to see what's in the package. So that's where it's a bit different for me. So it depends for what we're designing. If we design for both online and brick and mortar, we tend to put the product on the packaging. But for just online, and people, a lot of people that bundle products and things like that, they want something that looks nice. So I would definitely say something that looks premium, but it's still simple and nice gift looking packaging.
Yeah, and I'm glad you made the distinction there between brick and mortar packaging and e-commerce packaging, because you think about like how you shop as a, you know, the whoever's listening to this, you know, you think about it, you go to a store, you look on the shelves, you're trying to decide what is in that particular package. Like, you know, is it
Mhm.
cereal or is it paintbrushes or whatever it is, you know, what is in there. And so the packaging has to tell the story to get your attention, because that is the main mode of getting your product to be purchased. Whereas on e-commerce, you know, you think about like the main image oftentimes doesn't even have the packaging at all. Or, you know, it's more about the description and then the other images and things like that. And we'll get into some of the other images here in a moment. But you know, the interesting thing is we don't have to use the packaging to get people to buy. It's more as a nice thing. I like the distinction you made there of, it's like the gift type packaging. So even if you think about like when usually nowadays when you buy a high end phone, it doesn't even show the picture of the phone on the packaging.
Mhm.
It's like they want to make it nice looking, but it's not. It doesn't show that there's a Samsung Note or a iPhone inside of it anymore. It's like this simple packaging. Um, so I think that's a very good distinction there. So okay, so all right, so now we've got our packaging down, and it's more kind of gift type packaging, which I've never heard it phrased that way, and I really like that. So now what do we start doing to get people to buy the package? So what are things we should think about in our images?
Well, that would be your listing images.
Hmm.
Just want to point out one thing where people also might make a mistake, is where they can have very nice looking listing images,
Hmm.
but then they send their product out in a poly bag, and that tends to put people off a bit. So
Mm.
they get this expectation of this nice looking listing images and
Right.
photos and things like that, but then there's no effort put into the packaging at all. And yeah, then people tend, I had my clients tell me they lost clients because of that. So then they come back to us and they're like, okay, now I'm ready for packaging now. I think I need it now. So yeah, but with listing images, that's definitely something that's basically going to be your packaging online, you know.
Hmm.
So you're looking at these listing images, and that's going to help people decide whether they're going to purchase yours or your competitor's product. And one thing I always like to do is telling the people to make it easy for the client to make that decision when they're looking at your images.
Mm.
Um, Show everything that's included. Your main image obviously has to be solid on white, nice lighting, but then when you show the rest of the images, don't just like put it at different angles. Point out things, zoom in on something special, highlight your features that you have
Mm.
on your product. So say, for example, you have a water bottle. I actually use this water bottle in a lot of my examples. I use it daily, but this was I have two different competitors online. They're exactly the same. They just have different logos and packaging. But for instance, zoom in on this bit of the bottle, show that it clips open,
Mm-hmm.
zoom in on this bit, show that it's detachable, that you can carry it around, show anything that shows more value to the actual product rather than just having a bunch of lifestyle images showing the product in use. Show the people how they can value out of that product and all the little things um, that makes that highlights the features of the product. So that's one thing that I would say with the listing images. And then obviously having two nice lifestyle photos where the product is in use. If people don't have a budget for that, just superimpose your product properly into a lifestyle or a stock image to make the nice your listing images should kind of tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the product, here's everything it can do, here's the product in use, look how happy these people are using this product. So that's definitely one thing to consider when you are working on your listing images.
Yeah, and that's such a good point because at the end of the day, those lifestyle photos really should be aspirational because people are buying a product not because they just want that product. They're trying to fit some sort of need, or they want
Yeah.
their life to be better for whatever reason. Sometimes it may be small, but to them it might actually be a big thing. So, I'll be happier if I have this water bottle because everyone will look at me and say, "Wow, what a great water bottle." So that's definitely interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the trend has been moving more and more to um, very elaborate infographics that I'm seeing more and more in the images. So it used to just be like, to your point, it would just be product, product at a different angle, product at another angle, product a little bit slightly other angle. But now it's like, to your
Yeah.
point, it's like now things are a little bit more zoomed in. Oftentimes there's text. Sometimes it's just very graphical. So what are some things you could do for your images to tell the story? Because it's almost like people are like kind of making it like another listening in itself, just in the images.
Oh yeah, definitely. So people are lazy to read. They'd rather look at the images. But if
Right.
you have simple visual images and you, like I said, zoom in on maybe the cap and you have an icon of saying that's easy to open or it's airtight seal or something like that.
Mm.
Simple, short, powerful wording to use,
Mm-hmm.
simple to the point, just to let people know this is what they're getting. You don't have to have paragraphs in your listing images, especially if you have to think when people shop online, they mostly shop on their phones. So you want to have that easy to see, easy to read. And if you're going to have a lot of text on your listing images, it's not going to be very good for your conversions because people aren't going to read it. So I'd rather, maybe do, if your product has say 8 different features, maybe do 4 on 2 different images so you
Mm-hmm.
can really like make a big announcement out of those highlights rather than slapping everything onto one image with a lot of text that people aren't really going to read. But if people can scroll through or swipe through your listing images and they say, oh, okay, yeah, next, yeah,
Right.
I'm like that. it's easier. I like to have stuff to the point. That's what I'm gonna get, and I like to see what I'm gonna get easily. So
Yeah, and that's a good point. And also, that distinction between how people shop at a desktop computer and how they're shopping on their phones, and more people are shopping on their phones. So if you think about it, like, if you're at your desktop, you're sitting down, you're very focused in on that particular thing. Whereas on phones, sometimes people are walking around, they're watching
mhm.
TV, they're doing other things. So yes, we might want them to know all these different things. So, there's that um, phrase TLDR, too long didn't read. So what is the TLDR of what you're trying to get across? And so to your point, it's the airtight, it's the, what are those, quick little punchy words you can get to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some other things you would consider as far as like, are there colors or other type of graphics that seem to work, or is it product specific? When you're creating more of that infographic look that people have, and then we can get into maybe lifestyle images after that.
Yeah, it's definitely product specific. You don't want to use too many colors. You still want to have the product stand out,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely using branding colors. Maybe just have your logo. We like to put the logo into all of the images as well. Just light in the corner, it kind of helps with people stealing each other's listings as well, or in the background with the logo. But yeah, colors, it depends. Say for instance, you have like a cooler bag or something. Obviously, you're not going to use red. You're going to use blue, because
Mm,
blue, like, it's cool.
right, right.
Icons are going to be for that. Whereas when you use maybe like a heating blanket, you're going to maybe use more warmer colors. So it's really product specific. Um, Something eco-friendly might be green. So I would definitely say product specific on that one. But yeah, not too many colors. It shouldn't look like a coloring book image. It should still be clean and professional looking.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that kind of minimalist look can still highlight the product, but if to your point, because I see some, like, it's like, I'm not even sure what it's trying to say. It's just like this, like, this almost looks like a color wheel, where some people just have like
Yeah.
all this stuff going on, and it's like it kind of takes your eye away. So to your point, going back to like, how do people shop on a phone? It's quick and easy. They better be able to just catch it, and if they have to spend the time to um, TLDR it themselves, then it might be a
Yeah.
little bit too much. So okay, so that's a very good tip. And I would imagine, going back to the logo, it's something to consider too with your logo colors. What is your brand all about? And so
Yeah,
maybe that
definitely.
should like the colors could be affected in your brand. Maybe you don't want red if you're selling coolers, and
Mhm.
because that maybe doesn't make sense, even if you think people are gonna it's gonna pop out to people.
Yeah, and a good thing to remember with the logo as well, you should always try and have your logo to be in a solid color like black, because
Hmm.
that helps for like engraving, embossing, things like that. And it's a good thing to have your logo be able to be in a solid color, because let's say you want to print on shirts and you only have that option of printing in one color, but you have this overcomplicated colorful logo, and
Uh-huh.
with the different colors your logo just looks completely different. Then that's where having a simple logo that can be in one solid color is advantageous to your brand overall.
Okay. Good, good, good. And then, okay, so that makes sense. All right. So then let's talk a little bit about the lifestyle images. So, you know, what are some things to create that aspirational component to lifestyle images should people think about?
Well, definitely the product should be used in the correct setting,
Hmm.
first of all. Obviously, you want a clean, nice environment that you're using the product in, but the product should still stand out. Um, when you do photo shoots and things like that, the problem that I see most of the time is where a product would be used, let's say, for example, a knee pad and elbow pad that you use at a bathtub. If you're shooting something like that and you have these very colorful bath toys and the parent maybe has these colorful clothing and stuff on, it takes that attention away from the product. So you have
Mm,
to think of things that complement the product. The product has to stand out. So if you have something that's white, you shouldn't use a very colorful props and things like that.
right.
Otherwise, you're going to lose the product in the image. Rather, use a monochromatic kind of uh, colors for the overall setting, so your product can still stand out. And then definitely you want the people to kind of look happy when they're using the product, or
Right.
no awkward kind of staged. It should look very natural. That's the thing. When our photographer does photo shoots, she gives the product to the people and they just go about it. You know, she doesn't tell them to pose like this or pose like that. And we found that the photos actually come out a lot better when people are just going about it as they would naturally, instead of sitting there, you know, holding it like that or
Right.
smiling in very weird ways. And so, yeah, yeah, natural, simple. I mean, we should really think about going back to simple, um, natural looking things. I look at a lot of these images that it's too busy. It's just,
Mm,
it's, there are too many things going on and it takes away from the purpose of lifestyle images. You want to show the product in use and people having either a good time or a useful time or a happy time using that product.
yeah, and that's a good point. So one thing I was just thinking about as you're saying that is the, not looking too staged of happy using the product. And this may sound weird, but you feel free to disagree with me on this, but it seems like I think of insurance, financial services, and drug companies. They don't even have the product in there because oftentimes their products, like, what are you going to show people with holding a pill? Or,
Yeah.
insurance and financial services, it's like, it's not something you can necessarily even touch. So they always show people like looking happy and like aspirationally in a good time. But like sometimes those might be the ones to kind of think about, like how they at least present people that look happy. You know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah.
any sense?
Yeah, it does. It's actually very funny. I have such a laugh every time I see those adv- advertisements. It's too much.
Right. Right. But they always have people look happy, and like sometimes it doesn't even make sense. Like, like, oh, you're going to have this like wonderful life if you take this drug or you invest with
Yeah.
so and so, or, you insure your house with fill in the blank.
Well,
Um,
it works. I mean, it
right.
works.
But they
So,
always
yeah.
they always make it like look just natural enough.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something to consider. And then to your point, incorporating in okay, but now because you have your product, you don't want their sort of natural looking smiles. You want it to be the focus. You want it to be your product is the focus, and their natural
Hmm.
smiles are kind of backing up how the product that you just presented in the
Yeah.
other pictures works. So okay,
Yeah.
that's all good information. Any other tips for the lifestyle photos, like model selection and things of that nature?
Yeah, model selection is also important because you don't want a parent kind of product, but you have a very old person using it, or you have like a very old person product, but you have a young person using it. So you have to think of your audience that your product is created for. You have to use that audience, your target audience, so they use that product. And yeah, I mean, it's very hard to say because things are product specific,
Right.
but I would definitely, if there are a few key things, it would be to choose your models for your target audience, age specific, gender specific if there is that in your product range. Clothing that should be neutral, simple. It shouldn't take away.
Hey, Mariska, I think I lost you there. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, sorry. I was all of a sudden I was like, oh no, it's frozen.
Yeah, it was frozen. It seems that my internet just disconnected, but it's fine now. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. And plus, there's Zoom. I think is probably being used more than it's ever been ever. So I'm sure there's a few network
Yeah.
issues there too. So yeah, you were talking about you don't want the like clothing to take away.
Oh yeah, like the key points. So yeah, target audience specific model, ages, genders, and so on. Very neutral clothing. You don't want that to take away from the product. The props
Mm-hmm.
as well. It shouldn't be too much taking all the attention away from the product. And then the environment should be clean and not too staged.
Mm.
And the acting should be just like not too over the top, natural enough. So it looks like people are enjoying using the product.
Yeah, and I think a place you can also go for inspiration is Instagram, because oftentimes there's these like kind of aspirationally
Oh yeah,
looking photos that whether brand owners take or influencers take, where they're trying not to make it look like they're pitching a certain product, but they're making themselves look so happy holding a certain product that if you really think about it, they're probably being paid by that product, whether or not they disclose that or not. Or even if they just look like they're happy and it's just something they normally would use. So that's probably another good place to get some
yeah. I think
suggestions.
that's a very good place to go and look for some inspiration. That's a very good idea. Yeah.
Because you wouldn't just want to go into like hiring a model and maybe a photographer and say, all right, let's just figure it out when we get there. You want to have some sense of what you're going to do before you get all
Yeah,
that.
yeah, you definitely need a plan going into the photography. It is quite time consuming. Um, it is expensive
Hmm.
because there are a lot of elements to get to that. So I would definitely have a plan beforehand, and always providing actual visual examples to the photographer is a very good idea, because then it's it's harder to explain, but it's very easy to show. And if you just can have a few photo examples, it's very easy to replicate that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. So, for someone who maybe is like taking time, whether they're quarantined because of coronavirus or they're listening to this a year later and they're just saying, well, you know what? I'm just going to take a moment to kind of reassess my brand. What are some things you should do to kind of reassess your brand and see, do you need to do a whole new brand overhaul or maybe just tweak some things?
Yeah, I it depends on your product. An overhaul is not always unless your branding is very bad, I would do overhaul. But if there are improvements that you can make with your overall branding, I would say the first place to start will be your listing images. See where you can maybe have them link more to your branding. It's the first place where your customers are getting in contact with your
Mm-hmm.
brand and product. So I would start over there and then move it back to the packaging, the insert. Um, if there's something that you can do to the overall branding, do that before you touch the insert and the packaging. So yeah, start with the listing images first, then you go to your overall branding. Um, if you want to change colors and things like that, first do that, then move to your listing images,
Mm.
then to your inserts, and then to your packaging design. So you don't just do everything on one. You have to do it slowly. So you kind of want to do it without people even noticing it. So, but if you do a complete brand overhaul, that can also be a good thing, because then you can kind of launch your new brand. Whereas if you want to improve and tweak just a bit, do it so people don't notice it at all.
Okay, that's definitely good advice. Do it kind of incrementally. Doesn't have to be you do it all at once. You could do little bits here and there.
Yeah.
Because at the same time too, like if you want to do packaging, oftentimes now all of a sudden if you have existing inventory, you're gonna have to sell through that. And so that could be a little bit more of a dynamic. Whereas, you could throw an insert in and no one will have known the difference one way or the other, or the images could just help with your conversions and things like that. So let's just touch on inserts, because we didn't really talk about inserts. So what are some things you should consider with inserts?
Well, with inserts, a lot of people are afraid to ask for a review, and you
Mm-hmm.
can do that. You're just not allowed to offer incentives, or you're not allowed to ask for 5-star reviews. That's the only thing with an insert. But an insert is a very good opportunity um, to market other products, to ask for a review, and to get people. You shouldn't direct people away from Amazon as well, but you can still put your website on your packaging and on your insert.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just simple thank you on an insert card, it can go a long way. Maybe offering a coupon code for a future purchase or things like that. But yeah, never incentives, never asking for 5-star reviews. But you can have simple wording. Once again, I know I say it a lot and it gets tedious, but simple, really. Um, you shouldn't have this long sob story on your insert card, like
Right.
family struggling to get by every month, and having you shouldn't be like that. You should like be professional.
Right.
But
Exactly.
still,
How would you want to see it? Yeah.
yeah. So are you asking how I would
Oh, no, no, no. Just
advise?
like as you're thinking about it,
Oh,
how would you want to see it if you received
yeah.
a package? Would you want to hear this like almost like they're asking for money, like their charity,
Yeah,
or
it shouldn't be a begging kind of
right?
insert design. You should like, for example, we appreciate your purchase. We hope it brings you great satisfaction. To better serve you in the future, please feel free to leave us a review. It will help us to perfect our services and things like, something like that.
Yeah, and that's good. And I like that you said you can, like being within terms of service, ask for a review. Now, what I just want to say is I tend to be very white hat, or oftentimes you can't be completely white hat because things are worded kind of grayly, but I tend to be on the good side of the gray.
It's better to be
Yeah,
like that.
because at the end of the day, like I'll give an example, and I think everyone has probably seen something like this, where you get an insert and it says, "We will send you a Amazon gift card or PayPal gift card if you send us a screenshot of your 5-star review. Email it to such and such." If you do that, that is at your peril, because eventually Amazon will probably get wind of it. And that is very much against terms of service. And just because,
Oh
quote
yeah.
unquote, everyone else is doing it does not mean, this is my personal opinion, that's a good
Yeah,
idea, because eventually those type of things do catch up to people. And you can
definitely.
see that history with all the major tech companies. They eventually figure these things out.
No, definitely. I like that you bring that up. You shouldn't always do what other people are doing because it's not necessarily in the terms of service. So
Right.
when clients send us, we get it a lot where clients send us other people's insert, like a photo of it,
Hmm.
and they're like, "I want exactly this insert," and I'm like, "That's against terms of service. We can do it for you, but it's at your own risk. But I would not recommend it. This is more, you're not allowed to do this and this and this. This is more something that I would do." And eventually they're like, "Okay, no, I'd rather play it safe." It's better to play it safe because you can lose your entire listing. So I would
Right. You could
not.
potentially lose your account too.
Yeah.
Because, if you think about it, here's what legitimately is going to happen. At some point, someone is going to want to be one of your competitors, or you may have a competitor who orders your product just to see what you're doing.
Oh yeah.
Do they have an incentive to turn you in? And oftentimes, yes, even if they're not people that are normally the type to rat out, but normally all of a sudden they're like,
Mhm.
well, I'm not doing this. Why do they get to do this? And I've seen stuff like
Mhm.
that in Facebook groups and forums where people asking, should I turn someone in or whatever? And oftentimes people are like, yeah, with like pitchforks, yeah, turn them in, da da da. Or you could be sending it to someone at the seller performance team who just happened to purchase your product online. Or, what if one of Jeff Bezos's executives orders it, or Amazon has to go in and, they have a return and they have to inspect it to see if it's fulfillable or not. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, look at this, So just know, if you do any of those type of things, those are not long-term thinking, is the way I like to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that saying. Exactly. Not long-term thinking. Definitely a good
Yes. All right.
thing
So,
to
oh, sorry, go
remember.
ahead.
No, it's just a good thing to know and remember. Keep that in mind when people are doing inserts. You might hide it inside of a box. It's not
Right.
outside of the packaging, but someone will sniff it out and you will get people that would report your product. So, yeah.
Exactly. And you always want to stay on the clean side of things, I think. So, all right. So,
Mhm.
just to wrap this up, what other advice, whether it be packaging related, design related, or just long-term mindset related, would you give to someone at this point who's listening to this?
Well, definitely, if you're starting out new, spend time on your actual branding. Make sure that it's consistent throughout, from your logo design to your listing images, inserts, packaging, the way you communicate with your customers online. If you have a website, make sure that everything is consistent and try and keep it that way. Um, Try not to overcomplicate things,
Hmm.
and yeah, don't always necessarily do what other people are doing. Um, Simple is professional as well, so keep that in mind. And yeah, I would say, like, not to overthink it as well, and don't take it up too personally. Don't take your brand up too personally.
Very,
Definitely.
very good point. Very good
Sometimes
point.
you have to let it go.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we have to kind of put a little bit of a buffer between ourselves and our brand. Sometimes, yeah, this is a good point. We do take things very personally, like, you know, if someone leaves a 1-star review, it's like an attack on us personally. It's like, well, no.
Yeah,
Or the brand itself, so the more we can kind of create like a buffer, kind of like, when you create an LLC or a S Corp or whatever, you're creating a
yeah.
buffer between you and the business. You should kind of do the same thing with the brand too. That's definitely good advice. So where would someone go if they wanted to learn more about design, or learn more about Outlinematic?
Well, they can go to outlinematic.com. We have everything on our website. We have fixed pricing for everything. We offer photography and we offer design services. And yeah, we have a portfolio and everything. People can contact us through there, or they can fill out a design brief to reach out to us.
Great, great. Definitely recommend checking you guys out. So this has been a great conversation. I've definitely taken up some tips here that I'm going to be implementing. So thank you so much for coming on and being so generous with your information here, Mariska.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I hope it was helpful to people. And yeah, always happy to help anyone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. It was
Thanks.
nice talking to you.